Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Curtice.
And I'm Colin Boisvert.
And we are here to talk about round one post-fight carnivore carnage. So I'm going to jump right in. We're started off with number one seed, Spinosaurus, squaring off against the invitational number 8 seed, the current lightweight chomp Utahraptor. And on paper, this is a complete mismatch. You've got some animal that's 50 feet long, 8+ tons, versus an animal that's 23 feet long on a good day and 1,200 pounds with a little bit of hadrosaur in his belly. So it's a definite classic mismatch. But because people vote, I thought maybe he had a shot. And he did not.
Wrong.
The way I had the fight go down was Utahraptor burst out of the blocks, Spinosaurus, who's been there before, 2-time finalist, ambling along, Utahraptor counting on his speed, Spinosaurus grabs him by the back of the neck, throws him to the ground, and then proceeds to claw him, crushes him, and then with class walks off the battlefield. And class is going to come back up in a bit. So Spinosaurus acted like he's been there because he's been there many times. But that was the fantasy vote. The voters were like an 80-20. It was a complete massacre.
Yeah, definitely thought it was going to go the other way, Brian, if I do say so. You know, really had hopes that you had an animal that some claimed, right, Spinosaurus almost is walking on 4 legs, but in this case is 2 with its arms low to the ground, right? But since it was on firm ground, it's not moving so quick. So Utahraptor would be able to get in and just chomp, chomp, chomp and take out the Spino.
The second round fight, we had number 2 Giganotosaurus against number 7 Majungasaurus.
Talk about a slaughter.
This one was Majungasaurus had less than 7% of the vote once you tallied in the Facebook utter massacre.
It was brutal.
I think 2 people voted for Majungasaurus in the Facebook poll. It was the largest, most lopsided defeat in the history of our 3 years of championships. Now, that being said, the way the fight went out, Giganotosaurus has a lot to prove. He was twice defeated by T-Rex, and he is enraged. Now Meraxes is getting all the press. Giganotosaurus has a bad attitude. So I had him charge. Now, I made Majungasaurus the ultimate bold beast, knowing that he's outgunned in every possible segment. I had him charge in as well, maybe thinking he'd go for an eye, get some kind of lucky shot, only to have him walk right into the gigantic mouth. He was savaged. He was immediately killed. But I had Giganotosaurus proceed to kick and stomp and thrash and completely disrespect Majungasaurus. And he talked trash with my T-Rex co-host, which about had him come out of the stands. So Giganotosaurus is coming in this tournament full of rage. But in the real world, this was probably just as realistic of a mismatch. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Giganotosaurus, I need to double check, obviously, like anything, I believe did live with a small abelosauroid in its environment, which it may have interacted with, and therefore likely done a similar action, especially if it was stealing a carcass from said animal.
Talk to me about the Carcharodontosaurus firepower.
Yeah, well, right, in this case, they got claws and they got jaws, right? These jaws are designed to rip flesh and make you bleed. So for an animal that has a jaw, I was actually just watching your Meraxes video, for an animal that has a jaw over 5 feet long, right, versus an animal that is, in this case, smaller than it, right, that 5-foot jaw is going to do a lot more damage over what it's going to be able to rake with its teeth and how much it's going to be able to open up Majungasaurus to just bleed out with just one bite. And then it has arms that, while small, are still larger than Majungasaurus with claws that are functional. So it can use those claws to just slash even more at Majungasaurus. And especially maybe with the size difference, that's going to put Majungasaurus right in slashing range with this animal. And then obviously it's got these powerful legs, which it can use, especially with its weight, to just kind of, if it gets Majungasaurus on the ground, just crush it, right? And then bring in the teeth and the claws and just repeat. So you got a lot of good tools going for this animal.
Love it. Our number 3 matchup was number 3 Tarbosaurus, the Tyrannosaurid representative, and number 6 Deinosuchus, our first ever
we talked a lot about this one.
So And the way the voting went down, it was 60-40. Deinosuchus, the upset, took out Tarbosaurus, the Tyrannosaurid. And I had the battle as more of a slithering out on the croc side, or alligatoid. And Tarbosaurus was leery and hesitant and was trying to figure out, what are we going to do? So finally, Tarbosaurus tried to get around behind him, but he didn't count on the Deinosuchus' capability of flipping that tail and catching him kind of high. And he stunned the Tarbosaurus, hit him really strong, stumbled him, and then in that lightning fast twist, locked his jaws of death. And then, even though they weren't in water, just death rolled and held on and crushed the life out of Tarbosaurus. It was brutal.
Yeah. This was definitely another one that was really interesting to see, because I obviously went into it going, you know, hopefully if the Deinosuchus, right, can get some quick bites in, right, with its jaws of death, then it can just take out Tarbosaurus. But obviously in the long term, Tarbosaurus probably would have the metabolism to kind of, you know, fend off and slowly injure a Tarbosaurus, right? It's just that Deinosuchus had, like we talked about, that experience with dealing with tyrannosaurid predators in its home environment. And it seems that definitely played a good part in this battle, because I remember watching Taylor go, oh, Deinosuchus is winning. And I'm like, yep. I'm like, looks like the Deinosuchus is going to hold out. And sure enough, it did. And there were times I saw where it was like 66-34. And I'm just like, ooh.
Our fourth fight in round one was the one that all eyes were on.
Robbed. We were robbed.
Torvosaurus, the Megalosaurid, number 4, number 5, Saurophaganax. They fought one of the closest matches we ever had was in the 2020 championship, and they went at it again. And it was not as close.
Not as close. No.
The way I played it down was Torvosaurus, a little beefier, a little more raw power. Saurophaganax, a little svelter, but still a jacked, buffed up, lithe assassin. And Saurophaganax got baited into the knife fight in the phone book. As Saurophaganax, he threw his game plan out and went into primal battle rage. They locked mouths, they fought, they were slashing. Saurophaganax is doing great with his claws, but Torvosaurus kicked him low, buckled him, and then used the weight and slowly ground Saurophaganax down to the ground. And it was, I call it out, that Saurophaganax, he's a little faster, a little more nimble. I think that if he had stuck to his game plan on the outside, snap, slash, I think he had a shot. But the voters chose Torvosaurus. So I would love, you are an Allosaur huge fan.
Oh, all day I was watching that matchup going, robbed.
Which sets up round 2. And let's just briefly talk about round 2, because it's super intriguing matchups.
Of course.
You've got Spinosaurus going up against Torvosaurus.
Oh,
pretty good
cousins fighting.
And then Giganotosaurus is going to be throwing down against Deinosuchus.
Oh, okay. I really do think Giga's media star power right now is going to propel him past Deinosuchus. However, I could be completely wrong, and maybe Deinosuchus is going to truly continue to upset. As for Spino versus Torvo, and I think Spinosaurus is going to take this one.
In your professional opinion, if they were forced to fight, they both had rabies, and they had to fight one another in a coliseum, who would you think would win?
In an actual fight between Spinosaurus and Torvosaurus, this may be strange, I would say I think Torvosaurus would win, because even though it has smaller size and maybe not as beefy arms as Spino, with Spino, from what we generally know so far, with Spino's already low to the ground posture, right, of those arms that are held pretty close to the floor, and therefore this is an animal that's more horizontally inclined, more so than Torvosaurus. Torvosaurus, I think, has that height reach with its skull and its, in this case, body plan, to be able to both move around Spino doing circles, right, because he's going to be more nimble, and therefore with that height, bring in those jaws, clamp down on that spine, maybe do some damage there, right? and then slash at Spino. Spino, right, if he gets too close, may get a couple of good knocks in with his claws, but his teeth, while are designed more for holding fish, Torvos are maybe more, in this case, they're very blade-like for slicing flesh. So I would say Torvosaurus. However, I believe it's going to go the opposite way in round 2.
How about Giganotosaurus?
Oh,
Lucas.
so that one is tough. That one, I feel in real life, if they both had rabies and we're going to fight, I'm going to say Giga, but it's not because I'm biased, although I am. I think it's because in this case, Giga has experience existing in the same environment, if I remember correctly, as Sarcosuchus. So it's been around a giant crocodiliform, right? Now, Deinosuchus is going to be different, right? Deinosuchus is all about grab, slam, and then spin you around versus Sarcosuchus, right? Which has those narrower jaws, but it's going to have some experience. Whereas for Deinosuchus, it's going to be seeing an animal that looks similar to Tyrannosaurus, but acts differently, right? Is maybe slightly more nimble or about the same, but also has jaws that are designed to, slice flesh. So I think in that one, unlike with Tarbosaurus, I think Giga might be able to do the dance around and slowly injure Deinosuchus and take it out.